Hello, everybody, and welcome to week four's lesson on our introduction to measurement. I'm going to go into present mode here with any luck and begin. What you're going to take note of here in a moment is that of our introduction to linear measurement, which segues from here into scale and into actual drawing mode. Now again, this is in large part due to the fact that we're working outside of the CAD system for the here and the now. That may continue for another week or so at a minimum. We'll see. It's kind of an unknown at this point, but in the meantime, it's important to establish a baseline as to how we work in terms of scale. So without getting into all the differences between the metric, the engineering, the architectural scales, because there are many different units of measure when dealing with mechanical and architectural and civil engineering, we first have to introduce a baseline, and that involves the working within the inch system by way of fractions, decimals, and percentages. Now, what we're going to be using for the first time is a measurement tool in the way of a scale or tape measure. Scales can look like a metal or plastic scale of sorts. You've seen these all the way back, dating back to grade school. You can also use the tape measures that you see on the screen. Because again, you're going to be, regardless of whether you're measuring within increments of an inch, say 16ths, 1/8, 1/4, you're always going to be in addition converting that to decimals and percentages, and then even further on down the road, going further into feet, inches, and so forth. There's many different units of measure when it comes to linear measurement. We don't deal a whole lot of three-dimensional measurement in here because Inventor pretty much takes over at that point. But when allowing for conversion of scale, you're typically going to be measuring again with a tape measure or a scale that's going to be measuring in 1/16, 1/8, however many increments of an inch. At the minimum, you're going to be on a 0 to 1 inch scale dealing with no smaller an increment than a 64th. So it's important to understand to at least as many significant digits as necessary past the decimal point. What a 64th represents, what a 32nd represents, and so on. That's the key to the class. Also, in extending this further, you can look at a cross-reference between not only a fraction and a decimal, but even that of a percentage. Sometimes that's relevant, especially when you're communicating use linear distance over a whole distance. So, however often that comes up, we need to be able to make that connection. And as we pretty much all know, much the same way a decimal can be created by dividing the numerator by the denominator, you could also take the decimal point value and multiply it by 100 to get the percentage. We typically don't go any further than one significant value past the decimal point on a percentage, just as we, as a rule in mechanical engineering, don't often go more than 4 significant digits past the decimal point when expressing it in decimal format. So to put that together, if I'm measuring with a scale, as you see in this image, and I have a line drawn on a piece of paper, you can see from the increments on this tape measure that there are 4, 8, 12, 16 increments from 0 to 1. that means that every increment represents a 16th. If I'm measuring some line that falls between 0 and 1, there's no whole number in front of it. There's just 11, 4, 8, 10, 11 in the numerator over 16 whole. So that's something representing a subset of 1 inch, or a value between 0 and 1 inch. If I were to measure that same distance of a line that extended beyond the 1, then of course you'd have a 1 in addition to the 11/16. And then continuing on down the line, that's 0.6875. Why? Because after the 5 is a 0, we don't need to include any more than the significant digits, which are 4. And then you can round that up to 69%. Taking it one step further, like I explained earlier, this is 1 and 13/16. How do I know that? I count the number of values past the 1, and I get 13/16, which is 1.8125 or 181%. Now, at some point, you're going to be working out of the metric system, at least in a manner of linear measurement. And again, there's a formula for that that's a constant, as you well know. If we're converting from inches to millimeters, which is typically what you would standardly use as a unit of measure when working out of the metric system, for our drawings, mechanically speaking, you just have to know for every 1 inch there's 25.4 millimeters. So if I'm measuring something, and typically this is the case where you have to what we call dual dimension the item. If you need to list something, for example, that's 0.75 or 3/4 of an inch long, you multiply that times 25.4, and now you have the measurement in millimeters. And sometimes in industry that comes up quite a bit when you need to establish a measurement in both inches and millimeters. And of course, looking at it from the other direction, if you're converting millimeters to inches, for every 1 millimeter, there's 0.0394 inches, as this quick little chart shows. And it also goes so far as to indicate the fractional conversion. Again, once we're probably back in class and we're able to access the compass and the scales that you see captured in this slide, we'll be able to dive deeper into drawings that involve architectural floor plans like what you see here, as well as the use of the architectural scale. But for the here and the now, we just need to reacquaint ourselves with measurement in the inch format. And that's everything for today. Again, what you're going to find is this video along with another video that breaks down the assignments in this section. Take your time with it. I know it's probably very familiar to you, but it's something that probably hasn't been practiced in quite some time. So we need to get familiar with it. Again, look for another video that goes over the work. Take the couple of quizzes, and as always, ask questions if any come up along the way. Thanks, have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.